Republicans seem to be turning on Donald Trump in ways that we haven't quite seen. They appear tired of the president's antics in the face of struggle, because while Trump is out here busy floating the UFC cage on the White House lawn, building a ballroom and pushing $1 billion grievance fund, all while turning the presidency into a rolling spectacle machine, one Republican senator is basically yelling that Americans need help with medical debt.
Mr. President Trump, get engaged. Mr. President, too many people have this debt, $10,000 on their credit card, related to paying in part for things such as medical expenses, and they are going down.
Senator Bill Cassidy used a Senate speech to press Donald Trump directly on medical debt and yelled for Trump to, quote, get engaged as Americans struggle with medical bills and raising prices. And this matters, right? Because medical debt, it's not some abstract policy debate. One of the most direct ways that Americans experience economic pain, regardless of their political affiliation. And it's mostly red states that lead when it comes to Americans finding themselves crippled by healthcare prices. But don't worry, Donald Trump's Obamacare alternative should be along any minute now, right? The concepts should be done soon, I'm sure.
And it's unfair. The rates are way too high. To provide further relief to hardworking Americans, will also be confronting one of the biggest factors in driving up prices, the monstrosity known as the Unaffordable Care Act. You know what that is, right? It's Obamacare. It's a great name, Unaffordable Care Act. No, did anybody ever think of that one before? It's true. It's the Unaffordable Care Act. Obamacare was a gift to make health insurance companies rich at the expense of the American people. In particular, the so-called enhanced premium tax credits were a corrupt payoff to the insurers, whose stock prices went up more than 1,000% after Obamacare was signed. I want the same money I want it to go directly, very simple. I want the money, those big amounts of money paid for by the government, to go directly to the people so they can buy the health care that's right for them. They can negotiate their own deal, health care savings account, but they'll buy their own health care. And everybody loves it. That's why later this week, I'll announce our healthcare affordability framework that will reduce premiums for millions of lower drug prices, delivering price transparency and demand honesty and accountability from insurance companies all over the country, all over the world, actually.
And this is especially troubling for the president because Cassidy's not attacking him from the left. He's attacking Trump from inside the governing reality that Republicans are trying to avoid. People are struggling. Medical debt is crushing families. Healthcare costs are still too high. And Trump is spending political oxygen and taxpayer money on self-indulgent projects. White House ballroom, a UFC event, a $1.8 billion anti-weaponization fund. I mean, that's the contrast, right? Americans are asking, how do I pay for this hospital bill? Trump's asking, well, what if the White House UFC arena was just permanent?
Don't know that in Paris, France, the Eiffel Tower, 1889 it was built. It was supposed to be taken down immediately after the World's Fair. And then they said, you know, we sort of like it. Let's leave it up a little bit longer. And then they said, let's leave it up longer and longer and longer. Well, they never took it down. And, you know, we're building something in front of the White House that's quite attractive to a lot of people. It's going to have the big UFC fight on June 14th. And I'm looking at it and maybe we'll never, ever take it down.
And we showed you this picture and now it's opened. So this is now open. And that you see the size of that compared to some of the biggest buildings in the country. Actually, the biggest, Peter?
Yeah, President Trump.
And we have it finished. The water is pouring in as we speak. And
this isn't the first thing that Cassidy has went after Trump on. He called into question his ballroom project, criticizing the lack of transparency around the cost.
There's no architectural plans. There is no environmentals. There's no engineering. There's no sense of, when we ask, how did it happen to cost exactly $1 billion? In my mind, that is, it could cost a lot less. It could cost a lot more. I just don't get it.
And he wasn't alone. Other Republican senators, including Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, and Tom Tillis, also reportedly opposed taxpayer money being used for the project as well as the slush fund.
I think it's stupid on stilts. Why?
because it will invariably put us in a position where your taxpayer dollars and my taxpayer dollars could potentially compensate someone who assaulted a police officer, admitted their guilt, got convicted, got pardoned, and now we're going to pay them for that? That's absurd. The American people are going to reject this out of hand. When you take money from me to give to a purpose that I vehemently disagree with, that's tyranny, and that's what that account is.
And the thing is, the polling actually backs Cassidy's concern. Fox News polling, of all places, shows that voters are deeply unhappy with the economy. A large majority say that the economy is in bad shape. Cost of living is their top concern, and Trump's numbers on inflation and the economy as a whole are pretty catastrophic.
From Fox News just the other week on the president and this administration's handling of the economy, 71% of the American people disapprove, including 40% of Republicans. On the president's handling of inflation, 72% disapprove. They disapprove, in fact, by a 3-to-1 margin over approval. So do you agree with the American people, or are they just wrong?
Look, the American people were torched under the Biden administration.
Oh my God. I wish I had $1 for every time you or on someone on the Republican side brought up Biden's name. If I did, I might have as much money as you have, Mr. Secretary.
You would have lost 22% of your purchasing power, because that's what happened.
So the American people are wrong. The fact that by a 3-to-1 margin, they disapprove of this president and your performance on the economy. They're wrong.
The Democratic House has 17% approval rating.
No, I understand why you don't want to answer the question. So let me, I forgot to mention, reclaim my time. I forgot to mention, consumer sentiment is at an all-time low. So the numbers on the approval rating of this president on the economy are the lowest since the Great Recession. But in terms of consumer sentiment, which actually does measure whether or not people are optimistic about their future, the lowest in the history of a poll that dates back to 1952.
Well, it's not just coming from MSNBC. That's Fox News, the network that Trump expects to soften the blow, which just shows that while Trump will likely shrug off Cassidy's concerns as just issues from another rhino, clearly the voters echo the concerns of the Republican here. Fox viewers, even Republicans who show up at town halls.
I have a question about Congress's approval of wars. Where are you stepping in? The Strait of Hormuz was open until he attacked. There was no nuclear bomb there. You keep saying that you're going to make a deal to reopen the strait. That was already open. You're making everything unaffordable. We can't afford gas. We can't afford health care. Well, what is Congress going to do?
Well, I could tell you that, first of all, we don't want Iran to have a nuclear weapon. We don't want them to have a dirty bomb. And I think we all have that shared concern.
They're all dissatisfied. It's not happening in a vacuum. And while Trump's turning the White House grounds into a fight night venue as part of America's 250th celebration, and more importantly, his own birthday, this spectacle has faced immense pushback.
I mean, you can make anything overly political if you want to, but that is not our relationship. And even when I've spoke at these conventions or rallies that he did a rally at MSG that I spoke at, you never hear me talk politically.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard.
And this is what I got to say. First off, I ain't jealous of any of those fighters. I'm so happy for those fighters. I don't think you could have got a better main event. I'm happy for every single last fighter on that card. If they need me to fill in, if I'm healthy, hey, I'll do it. For the UFC, I think it's great. It's beyond great. It's literally the perfect scenario. But as far as the I'm gonna economics major. I love studying politics on the political side of things, not the UFC's business. That is, of course, they're going to say yes to it. But what I think personally is that our government is desecrating its role in society by entertaining sports. Our government is to protect and serve the people, and really should be as minimal as possible. And when you're doing all of this stuff, hosting sporting events, it's really outside of what the goal of the government was intended to be, because our tax dollars and resources are funding this operation. And like I said, I'm not criticizing the UFC. I love Dana. I love Hunter. I love Sean, Mick. I love all of them. And it's an amazing thing. It's a once in a lifetime thing. But the government should never be hosting sporting events, because there's more room for corruption, and we already have a corrupted government.
Of warmth, of a job, an economy, a community, a family. And for too long, you saw Democrats who were telling these coal miners that they should just learn the code. And what we saw during the Biden administration at the EPA, for example, was regulation after regulation after regulation, trying to strangulate out of existence